The End of Oak Street is a big, creative, and financial swing from a director and producer eager to show the world that they've still got the juice. David Robert Mitchell has been in director jail ever since the failure of 2018's interesting but hopelessly fragmented Under the Silver Lake. Producer J.J. Abrams has been banished to the world of comic books and TV ever since he perhaps somewhat unfairly took most of the blame for a little film called Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. And they're hinging their bet on an elevator pitch which goes something like, "Dinosaurs are in the suburbs! They are eating the neighbors! You're not safe outside! You're not safe inside! Everything, everywhere wants to eat your children for dinner! Oh no!" It is an idea which has a lot of the DNA of many of Spielberg's most successful hits from their own childhoods. The End of Oak Street is set in 1982 and is clearly riffing on the suburban movies Amblin Entertainment put out around that time. Stuff like E.T., Poltergeist, Back to the Future, and Gremlins, with of course Jurassic Park being the other inescapable comparison point here. But those are, by and large, family movies, and I do wonder if families are going to show up for The End of Oak Street, which is a bit scarier and emotionally more complicated. Mitchell just has a fundamentally more adult point of view than the childish wonder and glee that suffuses the films that Spielberg tends to direct and produce, even the scary ones. Consider the ending of Jurassic Park 2, where a T-Rex rampages through San Diego. The T-Rex eats like one guy, and the rest of it is silly mayhem. The T-Rex eats a traffic light and headbutts a bus into a movie rental store as cars screech and crash into each other. Whereas pretty much everyone in The End of Oak Street is running around on foot. All the better for us to see them get eaten. One of the first kills is particularly savage, as some raptor-looking thing catches a woman's head in its jaws mid-jump, almost certainly like breaking her neck as it flings her to the ground. Which is a pretty good base point for how a lot of the dinosaur-eating people scenes tend to play out. There's just like this extra brutality to it. What this portends for the movie's commercial prospects, I don't know, but I do know that this is objectively awesome. Neighbors getting eaten on their front lawns never gets old. I love it every time, and the movie is so generous with this imagery. Sometimes they're just getting eaten in the background while something more important is going on in the foreground. Despite the name of the movie, the neighbors are inconsequential red shirts, so there's nothing particularly complicated about us applauding their doom. Maybe the most fun aspect of this movie is how the suburbs aren't so much invaded by the jungle as they have now become the jungle. The way the orderly geometry of houses and roads are now potential killing grounds for both humans and dinos alike, such as when our main characters are debating what to do next, and we see several blocks behind them a big hungry dino just like slowly creeping towards them through an alley, or when they hear an ominous growl on the street ahead and have to figure out like, well, should we check it out or hide and wait for them to go away? And of course I have to shout out my favorite naughty boy, the giant snake slowly filling an entire house with his silent, slithering bulk. There is quickly a palpable feeling that Oak Street is more bustling with life than it ever has been before. But again, we look at this carnage from a more adult point of view than Jurassic Park. We see these people getting eaten through the eyes of parents who are trying to keep the same things from happening to their children. And I know there are a lot of kids in various Jurassic Park movies, but unlike those movies, a lot of the drama here revolves around the two parents trying to keep everyone from sinking into panic and despair. The situation is just so much more dire than Jurassic Park. In short, some kind of atmospheric wormhole has moved the neighborhood to prehistoric times. And so for all we know, our family of four protagonists, they might be stuck there forever. there is nowhere to run. And the gravity of that very likely possibility is frequently discussed and freaked out about. This first manifests as a suspenseful dread, and it's really captivating watching mom and dad try to worry or not worry themselves away from that dread. But in the back half of the movie, the amount of raw terror can sometimes suffocate the dino thrills, especially after a particularly bad day that leaves everyone holding each other and crying their eyes out for way longer than I think a movie like this really needs. To compare just one more time to Jurassic Park, at the end of the first movie, there's this moment where the dinos have cornered everyone and the adults are feebly standing between the dinos and the kids, and Sam Neill and Laura Dern, they just trade this one look like, this is it. And then we're immediately moving on to the next beat where they're being rescued. In the end of Oak Street, a similar thing happens with the mom, Denise, shielding her kids, and we really linger on her trying to coach her kids on how they have to run after the dinosaurs start eating her first. And you can see on her face that she knows that they aren't going to get away no matter what. And it's a bit too much, right? It's not really what I'm signing up for. What I am signing up for is the next scene where everybody's trying to jump off of a roof while pterodactyls are snipping at their heels. There are so many great moments of people running through houses as one runs through the jungle, picket fences whooshing past, and rollicking tracking shots. And there's plenty of silly stuff too. The family dog gets to have a hero moment. Somebody fights a dino with a sledgehammer. And there's a goofy sex scene that I dare not spoil. There's no real emotional or thematic through line that the story revolves around, no big or even small idea that the narrative is in service to. And so it does feel like they kind of just packed this movie with as many thrills and as much drama as they could in the hopes that the primal momentum of the individual scenes would overpower the disjointed way they are stapled together. It more worked than not for me, with one glaring exception. Many a horror screenwriter has been stumped by the problem of, how do I get my character to go run around the scary kill zone when anyone with half a brain would just hunker down in a locked room somewhere? And Oak Street comes up with an unforgivably ridiculous answer to that question at one point, especially given how disastrous that little expedition winds up being. There is at least some thematic consistency between the two central characters. This is not a movie that's really trying to drown you in 80s nostalgia, at least not too much, because Anne Hathaway's Denise and Ewan McGregor's Greg are deeply unhappy with their suburban lives. Greg is too embarrassed to tell his wife that he's been laid off and is sneaking pulls of whiskey from the bottle he hides in the garage. And Denise feels like she's having to hold the family together by herself because he's dealing with that stuff by himself. And I love how these really just feel like normal people who have resigned themselves to a gamut of small disappointments, which are just starting to feel unbearable. Hathaway in particular is incredible as this hyper-capable mom who can't outthink her way out of a life that she will eventually be desperate to think her way back into. There's this incredible line read she does when Greg confesses he didn't tell her he'd been laid off because he didn't want to worry her, where she says, "Well, that's ridiculous, because I can handle anything you can, maybe more," with such venomous disappointment. After the dinos come to town, she's already trying to plan the next 10 steps, while McGregor gives Greg this pitiful optimism. He seems to sink into himself as he stubbornly insists that a god he has never worshipped will save them. When they get separated from their kids, he can't stop saying, "Don't worry, don't worry, don't worry," which we know he's actually saying to himself. And I appreciate that the movie doesn't really weigh in on who is right or who is wrong. They're just presented as two equally understandable coping mechanisms. overall, I'm glad I was bombarded with trailers for this movie for the last 6 months. They got me curious, and I left happier than I expected to be. Run, don't walk to the theater, because a dinosaur might be chasing you. Okay, I have one last spoiler thing to say about the ending. Get out while you can. I hear my Patreon is a fun place to hang out. It's just an idea. You gone? Okay. Spoilers. So, Ewan McGregor's character, Greg, gets eaten, and the rest of the family find another wormhole that brings them back to the future about 20 minutes before their neighborhood vanishes. So Denise basically makes a phone call which ensures that he will be out of the flash range, thus saving his life. There are two things I don't really like about this. His death casts a sour gruesomeness over the last part of the movie. It just seems too messed up of a thing to put this family through in this kind of like blockbustery movie. And at that point, it no longer is a story about a husband and wife trying to overcome this thing together, which was the most dramatically engaging part of the movie. With him dead, there is no longer that dynamic of two different points of view struggling with and against each other. It's just entirely about Anne Hathaway getting her kids to the portal thing. And yet, I did kind of cry when he got out of that car and his family embraced him, shouting, we love you, Dad, over and over. We love you, we love you. I was glad to see him alive, sure, but I think what really moved me was imagining this from his perspective. This is a guy who thinks he is a big failure. He's lost his job and is keeping secrets from his frustrated family, and here he is getting love bombed in the middle of nowhere by them. It is such a pure dad wish fulfillment moment, and I am not immune to it. Okay, bye. Support my work on Patreon. Support my work on Patreon. Support my work on Patreon. Oh boy.